Metal Gear Solid once again, as it often does, highlights what is happening to our future. Digital ID has been circulating the news, and surprisingly the public have taken notice for once, with over 2 million people in the UK signing a petition against it. Governments and corporations, as we know, have often worked together, guiding the public's perceptions and ideologies through forms of social engineering. People depend on them, evidently.
Can you imagine what would happen if they ceased to function? Picture a massive political vacuum, a space that every powermonger will try to fill for their own greedy ends. I'm talking about an unregulated power struggle, panic, civil war, chaos.
Politicians often will talk about convenience, efficiency, security, and all-round inclusion, but without really giving you much of an option apart from the ones they've decided for you.
What are you saying?
Whether you believe it or not, the balance of power rests in the hands of the patriots. They regulate the country's various interests through controlled presentation, staging a drama that is palatable to the general masses.
Aside from excellent speeches and empty words, the underlying logic of it all is control. Orwell warned us that governments don't just rule with laws and the interest of the public, but with fear and censorship. They watch you, strip you of your privacy, and make obedience the only way to survive, under the guise of a democracy.
It's all a show. Democracy is just a filler for textbooks. Think about it. Do you actually believe that public opinion influences the government?
No.
This country is shaped and controlled as the patriots see fit. The people are shown what they want to believe. What you call government is actually a well-staged production aimed at satisfying the public.
Power and institutions are not maintained by the truth, but rather what's convenient, often built on by lies and hypocrisy. When people are forced to comply, they do so willingly out of fear or face the thought and speech regulators.
So I just need to know why would she's basically viewed a post which is not an arrestable offence.
I need to kindly ask that you remove said videos from social media. If you do
no,
so,
I don't think I've broke the law, so I don't think I will.
And also, I want to advise you that you might well be committing offences under the Malicious Communications Act, okay?
The public are digitally policed within the guidelines of what's accepted within the mainstream narrative. Anything outside of it is disregarded or considered dangerous, even if it is truthful. As being from the UK myself, I'm aware that some people have simply been arrested just for simply having an opinion, or leaving a comment about something they may disagree with, only to have the law enforcement thought and speech police turn up at their doors, just as Orwell predicted all them years ago. The party ultimately decides the narrative, even if evidence shows a nation like the UK is in the state of decline in every aspect. Using think tank mainstream government propaganda media sources like the BBC and Channel 4 to spread convenient information to them rather than the factual truth often showcased on freedom of speech platforms like Twitter through independent journalists with no bias agendas. The notion of Orwell's 2 + 2 = 5 isn't simply just a mathematical error. It is a clear indication as the truth we know can often be manipulated into someone else through forms of manipulation and control. And just like in 1984 what was considered fictional is now reality, is that those who don't comply are assimilated to what the party believes, or they are punished.
How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we.
Cut the crap! If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net?
Jack, don't be silly.
Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind?
In contrast, Aldous Huxley warned of a world very much like ours, within his novel Brave New World, which basically speaks of an endless pleasure and endless consumption of a society where corporations and states hack the human brain, training people to love their servitude, to depend on systems that keep them docile, distracted, and endlessly consuming, overriding the dopamine reward systems, making you hooked to their algorithms, addicted. Eating their fast food that large corporations load with chemicals that we have in our supermarket food, which goes hand in hand with Big Pharma, which medicates illnesses rather than treating the problem. It's a well-disguised system. One quote from Upton Sinclair tells us, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon not understanding it." This implies people have become too dependent on something they rely on. And instead of really taking the fight to the system, it's more comfortable to exist in a disguised utopia.
Freedom, civil rights, opportunities. The founding principles of this country. Everything that's about to be wiped out by their digital censorship.
Often when governments roll out policies, it's never presented to the public beforehand to decide what it wishes for its society. Sometimes it's just made mandatory. Governments and corporations present digital IDs as the next great innovation for society. They tell us it's about convenience. With one card, one login, a profile that unlocks everything from banking to healthcare. No more lost paperwork. They say it will make life seamless. And above all, they frame it as progress. The natural step for modern civilization. The old way of living is outdated. Silicon Valley often says this. And if you resist it, you're standing in the way of their future. And I say their because who agreed on it? Because once again, who asked for anything that gets rolled out these days? Technology is great, sure, but when people often forget the intent of those who created it and for what other purposes they intend to use it for, it becomes a problem. But it often comes in a form of a disguise, just for your convenience and entertainment.
Got a little too close to uncovering corruption among high-profile party members. After being sued for defamation by the subject of a story he'd written, he was blacklisted. He only realised when he tried to buy a train ticket and was told he was banned from travelling.
That tells me I'm still on the blacklist.
Punished because he'd been branded untrustworthy by the state.
Once you're blacklisted, you can no longer get a bank loan, start a business, buy an apartment, or even send your children to a private school.
The system is sold to us as a gift, as if it exists to serve the people. In reality, it exists to bind the people under a regime. History has shown us this countless times, of psychopathic rulers abusing the public human rights in their means to control the world. It's honestly bizarre how so many so-called intellectuals have never picked up a history book, because if they read one they'd realise that history is a gateway into the future, and things often don't change as history often repeats itself, another great theme that we see unfold within Metal Gear Solid. The pattern never changes, and throughout the ages there's been several rulers and leaders that have committed all kinds of atrocities to the people that they so often just seem to forget about. They want a society that embraces digital ID voluntarily, as it's far easier to manage one that resists it. If people believe the system is for their own good, they will not only accept it, they will defend it to the death. And if people don't accept it, governments find other means and ways, albeit Orwellian or in the form of a comfortable lie, as Aldous Huxley suggested.
Suppose that this rather frightful prospect comes about. I mean, are people going to be happy under this kind of regime?
Well, I think you could. I mean, this was one of the sort of what I may call the messages of Brave New World, that it is possible to make people contented with their servitude. I think this can be done. I think it has been done in the past, but then I think it could be done even more effectively now, because you can provide them with bread and circuses, and you can provide them with endless amounts of distractions and propaganda.
Once again, Metal Gear Solid has showcased a future that is closely resembling ours, and it profoundly feels like a crystal ball yet to uncover a reality that will become our future. MGS4 presents a world consumed by mass control, all in digital forms. The Patriots act as a world government who have enslaved the public to all forms of surveillance and information. Total Big Brother control.
Total information control. Big Brother 0. And it'll happen before anyone even realizes. I don't like it. Just one more gear keeping the wheels of economy turning. Another product bearing down the capitalist conveyor belt. But human will should only be handed down and nurtured by human hands. It can't be entrusted to the system. When you're up against he who controls information, it's gonna be a long battle.
The MGS timeline has showcased how the system came to be through its themes. What was human control then became the age of artificial intelligence that soon took the reins. With all the Patriots' collected knowledge over the decades, they ultimately hacked human autonomy in every way, down to the genetic level.
They've got a name for Anderson's AI project. It's called the Patriots. It's all about ensuring that the concepts driving society appears the same in the mind of each person in that society. About maintaining the identity of the individual, and yet having that individual willingly make up part of the whole. I guess it's fitting to call that patriotism. Creating a united world. Systems, guidelines, rules, laws. When you take a mentality and fix it in a solid shape, put it out there in the hands of people, it can only begin to decay.
Digital ID is what we know in the MGS universe as nanotechnology, but instead of it being implanted into our skin, we use our smartphones, which may be a little bit invasive, but who's not to say one day it won't become a reality, that we might need some kind of chip to be able to access any systems within society, either through a means of mandatory control or through convenience and comfort of the public's decision. I think what MGS4 shows us is that these nanomachines act like what digital ID could become, from its latter stages to the monster it could develop into if we allow it. The worst case scenario of digital ID tied to the system overseers is total surveillance control. Every action on what you buy, where you go, who you meet, and what you say online is logged under one ID. The system becomes an all-seeing eye, more powerful than Orwell's Big Brother, because it doesn't need constant thought and speech police. The ID itself records everything. It's interesting how we see this emerge in the MGS series. Those under the Patriot system can only refer to them as the La Ley Lule Law. Their digital IDs, so to speak, prevent them from speaking or saying the Patriots.
And the Patriots are behind this.
La Ley Lule Law? What are you talking about?
Never mind.
In MGS2, for example, Raiden is constantly under surveillance. Every move he makes is monitored in real time, like a GPS. Though his digital ID is implanted within him to the nodes in the big shell. The guy literally can't even go to the toilet without being watched, let alone have a private conversation.
Colonel, you were monitoring the codec calls. That man was the real Snake all along.
Maybe.
Maybe?
Don't let your guard down with him.
Why do you say that?
Because they were never a part of the simulation.
Switch over to Nano communication so nobody can listen in.
Yes, sir.
Digital ID also presents conditional citizenship, where you no longer have unconditional rights. Your access to work, money, healthcare, travel and communication depends on staying in good stead with the system. One wrong move, protesting, criticising the system, and your access can be restricted or revoked by the party in question.
This government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID.
In parallel, in the case of the soldiers under SOP, if they don't comply with the guidelines, they don't get access to what the system offers. And if they resist ID control, they are blacklisted. Or in extreme cases, as MGS 1 and 2 showcases, they can even be killed if they're a threat to the system, by making their death look accidental rather than malicious, by shutting down their nanos.
You've been added to the PMC's blacklist, so you're going to have to lie about your identity to get in. I've provided you with a way to evade the checkpoints.
Next.
Artificial intelligence controls every major aspect of digital life that we often consume. It's all around us. Whenever it's social media or YouTube or infrastructure, for some, it's really all become a dependency. Profoundly, it's a algorithmic control of our behaviour, censoring what we say or banning accounts. Awfully feels too familiar to the Patriots AI system that Raiden has conversations with. Digital ID poses a larger threat that could ruin our quality of life, just for having an opinion. The system would record people's online behaviour that could affect their livelihoods, and in turn, people censor themselves, avoid risky opinions, and conform because the risk of losing access to life's essential is too great to speak their truth. Fear becomes internalized without choice, and even if somebody is speaking the truth or presents clear evidence to showcase the problems that society faces, it doesn't matter if it doesn't comply with the party's interests.
All this you used to struggle with. Now we think for you.
We are your guardians, after all.
You want to control human thought? Human behavior?
Of course. Anything can be quantified nowadays.
If digital ID gets tied to banking, transport and social media, we get a de facto social credit system. Travel restrictions, job eligibility, even dating opportunities can be influenced by your standing with the system that shapes your profile and identity as it sees fit. Even if it's false or taken out of context, people will then judge you digitally rather than at face value, which can tarnish your reputation or even who you truly are. It's honestly a soulless system.
Clearly, an AI couldn't be allowed to make its own decisions. So they would take away its ability to act, and instead create a specialized system in which the AI, bound by specific rules, filters the massive amounts of data it collects before passing it on to people, subtly guiding their decision-making. A system of the people, by the people, for the people.
With that brings the exclusion and erasure. This means being locked out of your bank, denied entry at the airport, unable to apply for work or even buy food, all because of a glitch or maybe a false flag, or a bureaucratic error, or something as simple as a hack releasing all your private information. If everything's centralized like SOP, being deleted by the system can mean being erased from society that no longer values you. Tech corporations build and manage the infrastructure while governments enforce its use. That means your identity isn't really yours. It's owned jointly by private industries and the state. Whoever controls the ID system controls you. And ask yourself, is this what you want for your future?
Genetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control.
MGS4 holds up a dystopian mirror. The reflection becomes all too familiar. A word too dependent on the system, controlled beyond Orwellian levels that make George Orwell's foresight extend into something far more horrific.
The locks are only disengaged when they recognize the nanomachine ID inside a soldier's body. Anyone not possessing nanomachines keyed to the system, or anyone who's keyed but not authorized to use that weapon, won't be able to pass the ID gun's verification process.
So I can't use PMC guns?
I'm afraid not. You're not registered with the system. And it's not just weapons either. Vehicles, buildings, everything used for military purposes is secured with this ID control system.
While we may not be controlled on the genetic level, how do we know it's not possible that it could head that way? Disguised as smart tech beneficial for humankind. We can block out necessary emotions, pain, use it for medical purposes, cut down on crime. It all sounds great in theory, but it takes away from the natural balance of humanity as a whole and puts the power into technology's hands rather than our own. One thing that's dependent on a corrupt government and system is treating you as nothing but data and hackable. To them, you're nothing but consumable, docile machines turning the cogs in a soulless system that benefits them. You're basically just another number, so get back in line and do as you're told. MGS4 tells us to destroy this system before it completely consumes us, or even destroys us as a human race. Kojima shows it wasn't brute force that got people to comply. It was marketed as progress or comfort. In the world of MGS4, the public didn't rebel but embraced its control, accepting the war economy in their everyday life without seeing it destroying everything around them. Ironically, as war does in the real world, but people still fight them and just ignore them like they're just part of normal existence.
Every corporation tethered to the military-industrial complex is losing its sense of morality. And it's us science-holics who are doing their dirty work for them, not even realizing it.
And of course, none of them are fought for freedom truly, but simply following orders from their beloved patriotic leaders, as the boss in MGS3 tells us. They don't need to understand the reason, they just comply. It's not a soldier's place to decide.
A soldier is a political tool, nothing more. That's doubly true if he's a career soldier. Right and wrong have no place in his mission. He has no enemies and no friends. Only the mission. You follow the orders you're given. That's what being a soldier is.
Metal Gear Solid is really a reality check, one that seems to be only reachable for a select few of us, whilst the majority of the masses stay asleep in blissful ignorance. I guess all we can do is that they wake up before it's too late. Well, what will you decide for your future? Leave me a comment down below, and if you've liked the video, hit the thumbs up, and if you're new, click the subscribe button. Anyway guys, once again, thank you for watching, and until we meet again.
Free from Fox Die. Free from the system. Free from ID control. Our minds free from their prisons. That is the haven I've yearned for.